Welcome everyone, happy Tuesday. Welcome to InfoSec Live, where we give you, our audience, the chance to learn from and interact with cybersecurity industry's leadership. And today we've got a special recruitment focus where we get to learn from Stuart Stanton, a recruiter with 17 years experience. Today Stuart's going to be dropping his top tips for getting hired in cybersecurity and of course answering all of your questions live throughout the show. But before we get into that, and for those who haven't watched us before, my name's Simon Lindstead. I'm the founder of the InfoSec Live community and your host for this show. And by sharing stories and best practices over the last few months, it's led to nearly 250,000 views of our content here on YouTube by you, our amazing 11,412, I believe, subscribers. So a huge thank you for your engagement. And thanks to your support, it's also led to us hosting 13 community-driven leadership events now across the UK and US over the last 14 months with a focus on knowledge sharing, networking, and definitely no sales pitches. Now, if you're a vendor and you're interested in finding out more about the events or being featured on the channel, please do reach out to me. You can get hold of me right here in the InfoSec Live community, where we also have study groups, CV workshops, networking sessions, job alerts, and over 6,000 members helping each other every single day. So make sure you check it out. If you haven't already, use the QR code. If you're not brave enough for the QR code, you probably already work in security. One, I can assure you it's fine, but if you don't want to scan it, the link to join the community is also in the description on the YouTube channel. But whether you join or not, being here today and engaging with our content is what really matters. So if you're watching this live, please do like and subscribe. You want to make these events as interactive as possible. And like I said before, Stuart's going to be answering your questions throughout. So make sure you drop any questions you might have in the chat. Okay, time for me to stop rambling on. Let's bring Stuart on. Well, that clearly didn't work, did it? I'm just going to try that again. Hold on, ready? Let's bring Stuart on. Yeah, apparently if I press the other button, when I press that button, it stops it playing. So apologies for that. Good to see you, Stuart.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for having me.
No, it's my pleasure.
The intro.
Yeah, thank you. Not quite as seamless as I was planning today. Right. But look, thank you for taking the time to come on and share. The community have been asking recently for two things in particular. One, more hands-on learning, which we're trying to deliver for them on a weekly basis. And two, some more top tips from people in recruitment who actually know what they're talking about, rather than listening to the lies and damn statistics that are thrown all over LinkedIn all the time. So it's good to have you here for a bit of an open discussion around that. And like I said to everyone, if you've got any questions for Stuart, please do drop them in the chat. But before we get to that, do you mind just giving our audience a little bit of background about yourself and how you've got to where you are now and what you're doing today?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been recruiting for 17 years, as you say. I started back in 2008, where we had a recession, which is probably a little bit worse than what we've seen recently. So I've experienced the ups and downs of the recruitment market over the years. Earlier this year, I left a FTSE listed recruitment business, which I'd worked for 16 years, and decided to go it alone as an independent recruiter. I focus solely on cybersecurity. I support both consultancies and end users with technical and sales, recruitment, contract and permanent.
Okay, going back to what you just said, so I'm trying to do two things at once, message people in the chat and ask you a question. A quick question, a personal one for me, because I'm interested. What made you go out on your own after working for a firm for that long?
I think it's always something that I've thought about. I think it's easier now for recruiters to make that jump and set up on their own. The kind of systems and the supports there for you to do it that perhaps wasn't there 16 years ago. I think I'd got enough experience now to try and add some value to companies myself and really get close to a handful of clients that I can work with on a kind of personal basis rather than kind of chasing hundreds of jobs. I want to work with companies closely on a handful of roles at a time to really add some value and hopefully deliver the right people. So yeah, motivated by that, and also a work-life balance. I want to spend more time with the family. I want to be able to control when I'm working and what I'm doing, to hopefully get the best of both worlds.
Absolutely. You can take them to even more sporting activities after school. We were talking about that earlier,
Exactly.
weren't we?
Yeah.
While we're on sporting activities, talk to me about the frame behind you. What's this?
Yeah, this is my vest from when I did the London Marathon last year for the MS Society. My dad suffers with MS, so I raised some money and did that. Kind of always fancied it, but never gone through with it. So it was quite a mammoth task training for a
Was it
marathon.
was it as horrendous as I think it would be? My eldest son Alfie, he did one. He did the Milton Keynes Marathon.
Yeah.
I think a couple of years back now, and he said he'd never do one again. Do you feel the same? Or?
I can understand that, but no, on the day I really enjoyed it. It was it's just a great experience. The London Marathon to be part of, the atmosphere and the buzz of it all was brilliant. But after about 20 miles, it was a bit of a struggle. So I can understand why people say never again.
Do you mind me asking what time you did it in?
It was 4 hours 20 something.
Well done.
I was trying for 4 hours until that 20-mile mark, and then it all went apart. But
and then just getting over the line was
getting over the line was an achievement after that. Yeah, absolutely.
No, well done. I take my hat off to you. I know I couldn't even walk 25 miles, let alone run. So well done. We've got a question in quickly, so let's grab that before we move on. But what I wanted to talk about after I've got you to answer this one is really to give everyone a bit of an overview of the market as a whole. So what your experience has been the last 10 years or so, what cycles you've seen, whether things are picking up, whether people could, what areas we're seeing work in, what areas we're struggling in. So we'll move on to that in a sec. But I want to bring this up because it's quite a relevant question, actually. And it's something that I was talking to a colleague about last week. Prashant said, what would be your best advice in explaining why you left a toxic environment when trying to find a new role? Because that can be a tricky one, can't it? Because you don't want to come across like you're going to be an issue for the employer, because you could come across if you put it the wrong way. So what would you say to that?
I think, I'd avoid negativity in any way during an interview. I think it's trying to put a kind of positive spin on that in what you're looking to the future for. I think if you're getting across that you're looking for a certain type of culture in the company that you want to join, and kind of focus on that and what kind of person you are, what you bring to the table, what gets the best out of you, what kind of environment that looks like. I think it focuses on the positive rather than focusing on the negative.
That's great. Let me play devil's advocate. I'm in the interview now.
Yeah.
And you're the candidate. I'm the hiring manager. Why did you leave your last role, Stuart?
I'm guessing there's going to be more reasons rather than just a toxic environment. So I'd focus on some of the other things as well. I'm guessing there's going to be an element of career progression or wanting to move into different directions. I wouldn't say lie, but I would
make the truth sound more positive.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you say your reasons for leaving was the environment was toxic, then I suppose that doesn't come across very
can that be a red flag to the employer then, even though it shouldn't be?
I think it can be to an extent. I think if you can explain it in a way that comes across like it isn't the predominant reason, then I think it can be mentioned, but I certainly wouldn't dwell on that topic. Focus on the positives, focus on the future, focus on what you're looking to get into rather than what was wrong with the last place you worked.
And then just go on Glassdoor and annihilate them on there? Or
yeah, I don't know who uses Glassdoor, but yeah, maybe.
I think just disgruntled employees from when
exactly. Yeah, the positive ones never seem to use it, do they? So I don't think it gives you a fair reflection.
But then that's our society as a whole, isn't it? We like bad news and misery more than we do good news, let's be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what talk to me about trends in the market quickly. What have you seen the last few years, and where do you think things are going, especially in the tech sector?
Yeah. So I've worked in technology recruitment broadly for 16, 17 years. So as well as cybersecurity, I've worked across all the other areas as well. And in 2008, it was probably the biggest recession we've seen in my time in recruitment.
Yeah.
I don't think the last 18 months or so, when things have dropped off, has been anywhere near like that. We've seen highs like 2022, as we bounced back from COVID, was probably the busiest market I've seen in terms of the great resignation and lots of people looking to change jobs and remote working, opening up more possibilities. I think we're probably over the worst of it, touch wood. I think the general election being out the way, giving us a bit of stability, should hopefully kickstart the market in the UK. Obviously, in the US, that's later in the year, which hopefully will have an impact as well. So I'm hoping that Q4 is a real bounce back quarter for.
Do you feel then, from speaking to hiring managers and employers, that people have been holding back because there's so much uncertainty, especially in the geopolitical environment at the moment?
I think that's part of it. I think there's certainly been a consensus recently from the people I talk to that things are getting better. I think there's more projects kicking off. There's more budget being allocated and more positive signs that the job market will pick up. So I think the consensus is that it's definitely improving. I think funding wise, there's a lot of funding still coming through into cybersecurity. I did a post on LinkedIn last week that the numbers are up from last year. So the more funding going in is going to create churn across the market. So that's good news for recruitment and hiring.
I suppose while we're on that subject, then, we were talking about this before we went live. I mean, I've got a lot of people in my network in the leadership end of the market who've either been made redundant or they're out of work at the moment, and they seem to be really struggling. And again, loads of people in the community on LinkedIn, many of whom have been sold a bit of a story by boot camps and training providers about entry-level jobs. It seems that the top end and the bottom end of the market are really tough right now. What's the middle bit like?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, there's probably more CISOs available than I've known at the minute. And
why do you think that is?
I think there's different reasons for it. I think obviously the security budgets have been cut as times have got tougher economically. That has meant they've reduced the size of the security team. I think there's been a big shift towards kind of fractional CISO roles. So companies that are bringing in the expertise for 1 or 2 days a week or a few days a month, rather than having a full-time commitment, which is obviously a lower cost, lower commitment, lower risk. So I think that's played a part as well. Entry level, I don't know too much about because I don't specialize in entry level jobs, but certainly in that middle area, so the skilled technical people, that's where there is the skills gap we keep hearing about, and that's where the supply and demand is slightly different. There's not so many candidates for the opportunities that are probably out there.
Yeah, I think, I mean, Michael's just made a couple of funny comments from Prashant around CVs needing to be 145 pages long. And a bit of a token comment about every certification of 30 years experience for an entry-level role. But I mean, there is a lot of mismatches on the job descriptions out there. And Michael's comment, getting into cyber is too hard to break into and doesn't give people like me that's passionate about cyber the chance. Why do we learn, then can't get work? I mean, for me, Michael, I think a lot of it, and I suffered from this as well, was the information that was out there when I was looking to break in to do a technical role at an entry-level position back in 2021. The information that was out there telling me that if I passed these exams and did this, I could then walk into a job simply wasn't true. And I think there's a lot of people out there now in that situation, but without wanting to dishearten everyone, I've also seen a lot of people who've stuck at it, who have got the passion and who've networked properly, built relationships with people, because your network in the end is your net worth. You're more likely to get a sniff of a job through someone that you know than you are from applying for loads of roles online. And I'm sure Stuart would agree with that, no matter what level you are in your career. But I think, Michael, it's a case of, if you are passionate about it, don't give up. There are opportunities out there, but at the moment, the whole market's tight. You know, we were just saying at the top level and the bottom level, there's hardly any opportunities. So it's about being consistent. It's about showing where you can, what you've learned in a hands-on way, so that you can demonstrate that perhaps you could hit the ground running a little bit for these firms. Because again, Stuart and I were chatting offline earlier, smaller businesses haven't got the resources or the time to train people up is one of the biggest problems. So then if you're looking at entry-level roles, my suggestion would be to look at the bigger companies who've got the resources to be able to do that. And I'll use Sonny, my 19-year-old, as an example of that. You know, he's got an apprenticeship at Aviva. Don't discount the apprenticeship route either, because whilst it isn't massively high paid, it's still a lot more than minimum wage. I mean, I won't shout about what his salary is on here, but it's much better than if you're working in McDonald's or somewhere else. You can survive on the salary, is my point. So maybe have a look at big firms' apprenticeships. I'll see if I can do some digging around for the community to see what apprenticeship opportunities there are out there. Hopefully that will help. We were going to. Sorry, you're going to say something.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things you can do. To Michael's point, is that it is difficult and it's a tough market to stand out. But I think a lot of the stuff we were going to talk about today is just the kind of the 1% things you can do to just elevate you above the other people that are going for the roles. There's no like magic bullet for that, but I think if you do a lot of the little things well, it accumulates to you standing out above other candidates in the market, and that's the kind of thing I think we can talk about today.
Well, that might lead us nicely into, we're going to have a bit of fun now, and give you all a bit of a laugh at Simon, because we've got, where is it? Let's find this window. Now, don't judge me, everyone. Let me give some context before I bring this up on screen. So about 2 years ago now, I just launched the community. It was about 9-10 months old. I had no money. I was putting everything I had into the community. No sponsors at that time, no events, no YouTube channel. Well, early days YouTube channel. And I got to the point where I needed to get a job. So I reached out to a recruiter and he said, have you got a CV? Well, I've had my own business for like ever. So I didn't have a CV. So what I'm going to share now is a CV that I put together 2 years ago that I've sent to Stuart before this show for him to pull apart and tear it to pieces, basically. So I don't know if you can see that. I can't make it any bigger. Let me see if by shifting this around it will help. There we go.
Yeah.
Or this
I can
one.
see that.
No, this one. There we are. Okay, well, over to you, Stuart. Why is it bad and what could be improved on?
Cool. Yeah, so I think in terms of length, now there's a question and some comments about CV length in there. For me, I think 2 to 3 pages is a good length for a CV. I think any more than that, I don't think someone's going to read it all. And I think 1 page is just not enough. So 2 to 3 pages for me is like an optimum CV length. We say there's a kind of 6-second test in terms of CV. You've got to get the person reading it to see that you're a match for what they're looking for within 6 seconds. And recruiters and hiring managers see a lot of CVs. Yeah, you'll go on LinkedIn and you'll see there's been like 100 plus applicants for jobs. So it's really important that you're hitting the key requirements of the job straight away. So obviously you're not applying for a specific role here with your CV, but
no,
you're applying for sales type positions. So one thing I think stands out there is you've got your achievements bullet point is in bold, which I think is a great thing. For sales roles, people want to see your numbers. They want to know what you've achieved, what you've done. So you need to get that across so people's eyes are drawn to it straight away. For more technical roles, I still think that kind of thing's important. You need to show what you've achieved, what value you've added, rather than just a kind of regurgitated job description. So where you've increased something, where you've reduced something, or whatever it might be in the role that you're in, get that across so it's really clear and easy to see.
How important is this bit? Oh, you can't say, I can't highlight it. The personal statement. How important is that, and how long should that be?
I think that it is important. I mean, a personal statement, a synopsis, whatever you want to call it at the start. It is important. Again, you've got to get across in there what kind of role you're going for. So if you're applying for I'm trying to read it as I talk here. If you're applying for a business leadership role, a sales executive, then straight away you can see on your first line, you're a highly effective executive and business leader, right? I'm the recruiter, I'm the hiring manager, you've passed test 1. Do you say that you are what I'm looking for? That's really important. If you're applying for a role...
So you'd say that people need that in that first paragraph. So
100%.
Because you just said this 6-second rule. With that 6 seconds, what are you looking at on this CV then? You're scanning the whole thing? or are you just looking at the top? What do you do?
You're just scanning the whole thing. Yeah. So
Okay.
you're looking at the personal statement bit at the top. Does that match up what you're looking for? Yes. Can you see the key requirements coming through? Yes. Are the keywords of the job coming through? Are there notable achievements in any way, shape, or form coming through? Are there gaps in the CV? If you scroll down and notice you've got a gap and you've explained it, haven't you? Which I thought was good. Yeah, career break. So
There we go. Yeah.
there's a gap in your CV. You said, right, this is what it is. This is why. It's clear. There's no ambiguity there.
And I suppose next question is, how far do you go back on this? So for younger
Yeah,
people, this isn't an issue, right? But when you get to my age, or even 10 years younger at 40, there's
yeah,
every chance, because there's no such thing as a job for life anymore, or it doesn't
no,
seem to be. Where do you stop?
yeah. I think you just stop with the detail. I think your detail needs to be in what you've done in recent years.
Okay.
Certainly, no more than 10 years do you need that level of detail like you've got there.
Yeah.
Beyond that, you could just put the name of the company, the job title, or a brief paragraph that just said from years X to Y, I was doing this, and this for these companies, or something like that. So it's just you're just showing that you were doing something rather than explaining it in any detail. As you say, it's probably not going to be relevant to the job that you're going for now, because careers develop and evolve and jobs change.
Okay.
So yeah, one thing I did want to highlight, Simon, and don't mean to pick faults.
No, please do. Please do. Because I've noticed some faults on here myself. So please do.
If you just scroll down to the second page, and then you've got there, employment history, founder and host for InfoSec Live. You've not got the dates there. So I'd always put the dates into every single role, obviously just to make sense of what you're doing for every point of time, but also some of the like the applicant tracking systems that the bigger companies use. They will look for years of experience based on picking out those
The job
dates.
role or the industry or whatever.
Yeah. So they will look at the numbers of the years and the months to go, right, this candidate has got 5 years experience doing this. So absolutely put the dates in for everything.
Well, here we go. Let's just do this now. You never know. No, I mean, I think I'm unemployable. We've had this discussion before.
Yeah.
I'm not actually looking for a job at the moment. I've realised that it's just not for me. I need
Yeah.
to continue doing what I'm doing now. But yeah, okay. So anything else on the CV front?
Similar on the photo. I think photos divide opinion. Obviously, all of our photos are on LinkedIn, so it's not like a bias thing.
It.
But I'd say you don't need it. Again, some of the applicant tracking systems that bigger companies will use, the CVs don't always parse with the system. If there's
Oh,
an image.
really? Okay.
So I wouldn't advise putting a photo in. Every recruiter or every employer who's putting you forward for a job or putting you forward at interview stage is going to second reference your CV with your LinkedIn profile, which is why LinkedIn's really important these days, which I know we were going to come on to. So they'll see you there. Don't worry about having to put the picture into your CV.
Okay. See, obviously vanity there. I was actually told by the other recruiter I spoke to put my picture on there. So again, you've got more experience than they had, so I'm going to believe you and take the picture off. Plus, I'm too old to have my picture on things these days. The other thing, going back to question from Brian. Brian said his CV is 3 pages long and getting zero traction. Maybe I've just answered my own question. How long should it be? You said 3 pages is okay, right?
Yeah, 2 to 3. I think any more than that's too much. It's not going to get read, and any less isn't enough. So I suppose it's about what you've got in those 3 pages. Like we were saying, is the CV tailored for the job that you're applying for? I would avoid having a one size fits all CV. If there's a job that you're going for that is asking for certain experience, whether that be technology or project or industry, you want to tailor it to highlight what you've done in those particular fields. So there's more information on that than there is on the stuff that they're not asking for obvious reasons. You want your experience for the role to stand out, not just all of your experience listed on a document.
It's a really good question actually, and I just highlighted the part that relates to it from Carmel Guy in the chat there. It says, I noticed Simon mentioned his OSCP failure. how important is mentioning struggles and challenges on the CV? I didn't
Mhm.
even know I'd put that on there. So that's well pointed out. It's a good point.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's fine. I mean, you're saying that you basically had a change of direction in your career path there, aren't you? So that
Well,
makes sense.
I think what I'm really saying there is I believed all of the hype from doing all this stuff
Yeah,
that would be enough for me to be a junior penetration tester. And
yeah,
for those that are interested, I mean, I'll get rid of my CV now. We've finished that.
yeah,
I got an interview with a company called F-Secure, which would have been, I think, late 2020, maybe October, November time. And the first 10 minutes of the interview went really well when I was talking about what I was doing and what I'd learned in my previous experience with report writing in financial services. And then he started asking me about networking, and I just didn't know the answers. So I said to him at the end of that interview, what do I need to do to get a job with you guys? And he turned around to me and said, go get your OSCP and come back. Now that's such a throwaway comment from him, but for me, who was new to the industry, at that point, I hadn't built the community. And the reason I built the community is because I didn't have one before to ask these kind of questions to. I'd have known at that point, if I had people around me, that doing OSCP after less than a year's worth of intensive study, I was never going to pass that. And I was never going to be ready for it. And I just think it's important to manage your own expectations a little bit. And when I failed that exam, I mean, I was doing hack the box like 6 hours a day. I was doing all these practice rooms, all this stuff. So I got to the exam. It's 24-hour exam for anyone who doesn't know. Got to the point of it starting. I was quite confident, and I brought it up, and I just went. I think I got one box out of the six. I think you had to get, and that was only because I'd learned how to follow a process
yeah,
rather than actually understand what I was doing.
yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah, I think there's no substitute for practical experience, is there? And there's a
no.
lot of certifications out there, but I don't know. I think if you can get some practical experience in an apprenticeship or something like that, then that is the best way to
What about
progress your.
volunteering for organisations? You know, maybe for a charity or
Yeah.
something like that. And again, I don't know. I'd like to know your thoughts on this. What about volunteering and going around local sports clubs and schools and offering like cyber education? Would that help for some kind of roles where you need to be able to show you can present and
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm no expert on entry level roles, but if I was a hiring manager looking at that, then again, that's a 1% where you're standing out above other applicants because you're
yeah,
putting yourself out there. You're trying to get experience. I suppose as well, you're showing that you've got communication skills and some of the softer skills that are often lacking. I think that's a real sweet spot for people looking to progress their careers in security. Is there's still a lot of clients out there who are struggling to find technical people that can engage with stakeholders and translate technical jargon to people and so on and so forth. That's a real commodity. If you've got those skills, technical and communication, you're a hot potato in the market.
so there's not many people like that about, no.
No, not in
No.
terms of the demands. No, I was talking to a consultancy this morning, and yeah, they've got the same problem. They've got really, really good technical people going into their end customers, but they're struggling to get that kind of that translation of technical matters to non-technical people. And if you can do that, then you're a real asset.
There's we've actually only got 1 minute left. I told you this would go quick,
It
didn't
does,
I?
doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, really
Not
quick.
come through often still.
Brian's asked a quick question. Do you deal
Yeah.
with open roles in the US or are they mostly UK based?
Yeah, deal with vendors in the US, not so much on the end user side, but yeah.
So sales roles. What
Yeah,
other sort of
technical
thing do you
sales
do?
roles. Yeah, go to
Sales
market.
engineers and
Yeah, VP of sales, account executives, BDRs, all that kind of stuff.
okay. And what's the market like in the sales space for the vendors at the moment?
Again, it goes back to the funding. I think there's more funding going through now, which is creating that churn through the market. I mean, there's lots of good sales candidates available in the US at the minute, so it's not where we want it to be. But I do think that is on the up, and the more funding that comes through, it picks the market up. So I'm hoping towards the end of the year that will really take off. You're on mute. I can't hear you now, Simon.
Sorry,
Don't
I
know
said
why.
I think we're waiting for the November election, really, aren't we, for
Yeah,
that?
yeah. That'll have a big impact in the US.
Which after the weekend has turned into even more of a roller coaster, hasn't it?
Yeah. I thought we were
It's
bad.
going to be interesting. Diamond's in the chat there. He's mentioned, what about doing a project on securing multiple tier cloud architect implementation? And I'm bringing that up because I know that he's been working on his own project, which is quite a technical thing. And I think it's an
Yeah,
amazing thing from my point of view, Diamond.
100%.
What do you think? Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, these are the 1% things that, well, that's more than a 1% thing, but it's going to make you stand out across a pool of applicants. But what you've got to do is make sure that you're portraying that in your CV. So you're highlighting what you've done, what the impact of it was, what you've learned, and then you're getting that across to the recruiter or the line manager in the interview. I was speaking to someone last week, kind of going off topic a little bit, but he was saying that when times are hard in the job market, if he sees a job that he thinks he's perfect for, not only will he apply, he'll find the line manager on LinkedIn, he'll message them saying that he's applied. If it's a recruiter, he'll call the agency and speak to the recruiter to put himself front and center. And I think that's a really good tip, is you've got to stand out. You can't just send your CV and hope that it's all going to go in your favor. If you think you're the right person for the job, you've got to sell yourself and you've got to go the extra mile in a tough market. So I think that was a really good tip for everyone there.
Thank you. Because we're out of time, a couple of things quickly. I'm going to bring up, if you want to connect with Stuart or find out more about Marston Search, which is his firm, QR code is there. I will put it in the description for those of you that don't want to scan the code as well. But please do reach out to him if that's okay, Stuart. I'm going to put your LinkedIn profile in the chat as well. While I'm doing that, we had so many other things that you were going to cover. Is there any kind of more top tips you can drop while I'm pulling this up?
I think we haven't really covered interviews, so I mean it's a big topic in itself. So we probably haven't got time to do that. But I think beyond the basics of how to sell yourself in an interview, I think once the interview's finished, that's when you can again stand out. So if you've interviewed and thought you've done well, and you want to feed back to the customer. In my last job, we were big on getting candidates to write a kind of a cover letter to say, really enjoyed the interview. This is what I liked. This is what I learned. This is why I want the job. This is why I feel I'm suitable. Just a concise couple of paragraphs, again, to help you stand out above other applicants. If you really feel that that's the right job for you and that's the one you want, it's worth the effort.
You think it is? Because again, I know people who have been doing that and they said they feel like it's a waste of time and no one's reading them. But all it takes is the one, isn't it, to get picked up?
Exactly. If you're 50-50 with another candidate, it's going to get you the job, isn't it? So I think it's worth it. Again, none of these things are like the magic bullet. It's all of these things done well will make you stand out and give you a better chance.
It's going back to what you said. It's about making yourself that 1%, isn't it? Doing everything you can to put yourself head and shoulders above everyone else who's out there looking for the same job.
And I suppose the other thing I'd say on that is I'm big on references. If you can get someone that you've worked with or you work for to write you a couple of paragraphs to say this candidate would be really good for this job based on what they've done working for me, which was XYZ, that's really going to stand out as well. Not just they worked here from this month to this month, a personal reference from a manager that can say you did the job that you were applying for and you did it well. That really stands out.
Brilliant. Let me take this QR code off. Now, look, we're out of time, so I'm going to have to wrap things up. Diamond said thank you. No, thanks for jumping in, everyone, and asking the questions and making it engaging today. Maybe then, Stuart, we should come back in a couple of 3 weeks' time and just focus on interviews, maybe do a 20-minute session for people if you're up for that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Perfect. All right, in that case, then, I'm going to get my kayak on the roof of the car, my nearly 8-year-old daughter in the car, and I'm going to take her for a paddle down the river before bed tonight, seeing as it's only 6:30 here in the UK. But look, everyone, thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. Stuart, thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge and experience with the community today. And like I said to everyone before, if you want to connect with Stuart, I've put his LinkedIn link in the chat, and there's also the link to Marston Search as well, be in the description of the show. But have a great rest of the day, everyone. We're back tomorrow. Well, I'm not. I'm in the back studio pressing buttons. Jake Bernardez is doing the first of his live sessions, Risking It All in Cybersecurity, and he's joined by the head of GRC from Swim Lane, so that should be quite an interesting one. probably worth you tuning in for that as well. Stuart might be a potential customer.
Sounds good.
But everyone, have a great rest of the day. Stuart, hold on, because I want to have a quick chat with you afterwards. See you all soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.